And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Josh Manning, Deputy Managing Editor for Assignment at the Western Journal. Joining me today on my left, Brian Chai, Manager of Publishing Operations. And on my right, Brett Kershaw, reporter for us. Sadly, this is Brett's swan song. It is his last WJ Live ever. We're sorry to hear that. We'll make it a good one. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. Just as a quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button. After you click that, you'll be able to click a little bell icon that'll appear off to the side. Click that. That'll make sure that you get notified every time we go live. No shadow banning for you. So we got multiple things to talk with you about today. We want to talk a little bit about the Mayo Clinic and Joe Biden and the big D word, dementia. We are also going to be talking about taxes and how one town, or maybe it's one state, we'll talk with Brett about this, one municipality is thinking about letting citizens decide where their tax money goes. It's going to be absolutely fantastic to see if they decide to defund the police. And we will also be talking about new comments from former President Trump on the COVID vaccines and their use with children. But first off, to the big story. The big story because it's my story. The Mayo Clinic. So, as you all know, if you've been watching WJ Live or if you've been watching any conservative news coverage, or if you've not been living under a rock, you know that President Biden tends to flub things. He tends to stumble. He tends to get confused. He tends to look very old and very decrepit. And that's okay. He's earned that. He's in his 70s. What's a little bit less okay is for you to be behaving in that way when you're the leader of the free world, when you're the most powerful man in the world. So we thought it would be very interesting to take a look at what the Mayo Clinic has to say about dementia. We were nosing around on their website, and we found a fascinating page on dementia. It contained a recommendation that President Biden might want to heed. We've got some video for you. We're going to show this in just a second. I'm going to call for that when it's the right time. But first off, I want to read to you a piece that we put together, our own Michael Austin put together. This went out earlier. It says, Biden needs to see a dementia specialist right now if the Mayo Clinic is right. Does Joe Biden suffer from dementia? The answer to that question remains unclear. However, it's undeniably true that the president is currently exhibiting many symptoms of someone with a deteriorating brain disease. Remarkably, the list of symptoms for dementia provided by the Mayo Clinic could alternatively be used as a checklist of odd behaviors exhibited by Biden. These symptoms include memory loss, difficulty communicating or finding words, difficulty reasoning or problem solving, difficulty with coordination and motor function, inappropriate behavior, depression, anxiety, personality changes, agitation, hallucinations, and the list goes on. So we at WJ Live thought, well, gosh, let's go look at some old video of President Biden and let's see if in those videos he fits the description of someone who may be experiencing dementia. So I want to first off take a look at a couple of clips that look at memory loss, difficulty communicating, difficulty reasoning. Russ, take it away.
We hold these truths self-evident, that all men and women, we haven't lived up to it completely, but we've always widened the arc. But there's a lot that is happening.
Joe, pay attention.
What do you say to Vladimir Putin?
To answer the first question, I'm laughing too. Well, look, I mean, he has made clear that
So we couldn't hear part of that clip in the studio, but really the look on his face just says it all, doesn't it? We just started laughing looking at it. Memory loss, which is usually noticed by someone else. That's how the Mayo Clinic characterizes it. Yes, we noticed it. Difficulty communicating or finding words. Check. Difficulty reasoning or problem solving, check. But it doesn't stop there, folks. We've also got difficulty with coordination and motor functions. How about that one, Russ? He didn't scrape his knee. That's good. Difficulty with coordination and motor functions. Well, that's excellent. How about, and this may be my favorite Biden dementia topic, inappropriate behavior. Go Russ. Oh, you smell so good. Oh, hi, darling. Do I have old man breath?
Ooh.
Oh, Pat Joe Biden, maybe you'll leave my daughter alone. Oh, I could break your neck right now, sweetheart. Smell the hair. Smell the hair.
Joe.
The look on her. What do I do? The man won't stop touching me. I've had that problem with Brian before. And
That's why they separated our offices.
Last but not least, let's take a look. We're talking about characteristics of someone suffering from dementia. Let's take a look at agitation, Russ.
When you're having these conversations with European allies who are very concerned about these sanctions, how do you justify that? And what are your plans to
120 days. Give me a break. Need time.
He'll change his behavior, Mr. President.
Yeah, I'm not confident in changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time? So when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating a fact.
You dog-faced pony soldier. You lying dog-faced pony soldier. Hey, you want to go out and have a push-up contest? At the bottom of the Mayo Clinic's page on dementia, the page itself recommends that people exhibiting those symptoms go for a checkup to see if to see if they're possibly experiencing dementia. Based on the videos, but let's be honest, folks, we know a lot more than just what those videos showed. Based on that, Biden probably does need to be checked out for dementia. Now, I would bet that he already has. Any physician worth his salt. In fact, President Obama's former physician has talked about Biden's mental condition and the deteriorating nature of it. So, Brian, I guess I'll ask you first. So let's say that there is dementia beginning. Dementia, it is a coming. And the doctors notice that. You think we'd ever hear a peep about it?
Yes, because I think the left would actually be probably a little more thrilled with Kamala Harris as opposed to Joe Biden.
So they wouldn't defend him.
Yeah,
this would be their way to usher him out.
Yeah, I think this
interesting.
is and this is such this is a health issue.
It's a big betrayal.
It is a big betrayal, but at the same time, it's a health issue. This isn't like a clandestine digging up dirt on Biden. This is just, hey, he might. So I think as best they can, I think the left and the mainstream media will obviously gloss over these until they get the old dog whistle from the particularly loud leftists at the top who are now saying it's time for Kamala. Then the narrative flips like that. I think until that point where the left has decided it is time for Kamala, the media and everyone will kind of gloss over this. But as soon as this is their in, I think they take it.
What do you think about that, Brett?
I could see that coming. The thing with Kamala. Ooh. Interestingly, I don't know how many people would prefer her over Biden at this point because she has gone lengths to show the American people that she is not a leader, nor does she really care about anything other than what will further her political career.
Yeah.
Whereas, as we're seeing right now, Biden, this is me pure conjecture, speculation, he's dying on a sword. He's dying for the movement. Like we had this conversation earlier today, where what type of old man suffering through this would what the people around him, how would they let him do this? That seems so malevolent.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like even us, we have disagreements, but I don't like seeing Joe Biden daughter around. It's like my grandpa. I don't like to see my grandpa daughter around.
Yeah.
And at this point, like you said, it's not just one instance. It's not just two instances. This is every day we get a nice little touch of dementia for the American people.
So, a touch of dementia for the American people.
A splash of dementia.
So, Brett, let's sort of fast forward over the next 2 or 3 years. Let's say it gets incrementally worse. What do we see maybe two questions here. First off, what's the turning point? What does he have to do for it to become really painfully apparent? And if we hit that point, what do they do?
I'm waiting for the State of the Union, because that is when there is so much spotlight on the president in a way where it's almost inescapable to make those gaffes on that world stage. I mean, he went to G7 and he bumbled around. So, in my opinion, going overseas, that would have been the tipping point.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. So it's going to have to be in front of millions upon millions of Americans that he just does something, like to the point where we're like, ooh, he forgot his name. And I think that's when the bait and switch happens. And they're like, we need to invoke the 25th Amendment now.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like, we don't want that. That's the craziest thing, is like they're
of course
the
not.
ones that are holding. I think they're the ones that are holding this over his head. And that's just.
It's an interesting choice, Brian, to have put the country in this position, right? The left had to essentially make a deal with itself and agree that, okay, someone who's clearly on the mental decline is better for the country than a multi-billion-dollar businessman who had maxed out employment, minimized unemployment, had helped blacks, Hispanics. You and your Asian friends, of course, needed no help. You guys are
cousins. They're all cousins.
You're cousins.
Yeah.
You're all cousins.
We're all related.
Yes. But they had to at some point make a decision that, okay, a doddering old man is a better bet for us and for America. So what do they do? You said that they're maybe waiting to kind of sweep him off to the side. How do they do that?
Actually, it's funny that Brett actually made me rethink my position in real time a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well done.
Because Brett is 100% right. Kamala Harris has been an unmitigated disaster as a VP, and that is hard to do.
Yes.
VPs, by definition, are wallflowers. Right. Like, you are seen but not heard from. Yeah. And yet somehow she has still been one of the worst VPs we've seen in a while. So I do wonder if her performance thus far, maybe that was the whole plan. Maybe the plan was, within the first year, let's try to install Kamala. But now it's like, and then you see Biden's potential dementia setting, and you're like, oh no.
Let's get as much mileage out of this old truck as we can. That's good. That's good. All right.
That's what it feels like.
Well, we will continue to update you, of course, on westernjournal.com as new Biden gaffes come in. And if anything bigger than that comes in, we'll be sure to cover it as well. We mentioned President Trump just a minute ago. Brian, we're going to toss it to you next. Yeah. Trump has been back on the scene. It's been nice seeing him. Yep. He has been talking about vaccines. Normally he's been pretty positive about vaccines. His tone was a little bit different this time. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So Trump, in an interview this morning, actually, with Newsmax, they covered a whole bunch of topics. Obviously, I mean, if you get Donald Trump for an interview, you're covering a lot of topics. Naturally, vaccines were brought up. And Trump had some interesting comments about not the efficacy, but just if younger people need it. Because that is an ongoing debate. I think most people can agree, like, if a consenting adult decides they want a vaccine, go for it. Like, But Russ, let's go ahead and roll that clip. I took a snippet of it, and here is former President Donald Trump. So there's President Donald Trump, this was such a refreshing message. Yes, I know Trump is not the president, but just having someone who basically comes out and says, "Look, America's a free country. If you want the vaccine, get it. I don't think kids need it." That is
something about
so
that
missing.
pithy common sense from him.
Yes,
there was,
exactly.
And I don't mean this in a pejorative way.
Yeah,
it was not. Everything was not ultra overthought.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just like, this seems reasonable. Let's go with this.
Yeah. And when you juxtapose that with society at large, and actually this is another story we were talking about earlier, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, they came under quite a bit of scrutiny when essentially, this is paraphrasing essentially, but Make-A-Wish essentially came out and said, dying children who are not fully vaccinated don't get a dying wish. which is wrong, disturbing.
Wow.
Josh, I remember your response when you saw that story. Your response is in all caps. You were so angry. Seeing you angry in person is an everyday occurrence. Seeing you angry on Slack, I was like, "Oh, Josh is really fired up about this." If he's typing
Nothing
all
like
caps.
capital letters.
So yeah, it's this bizarre and genuinely head scratching push from the left. Like, your kid needs it, and the science just doesn't back it up. And I went into this with as open of a mind as possible, especially, I'm a new dad, do I want, actually, I think my kid's probably too young, but, it is sort of like, these are the things I think about now as a parent, and it's just, so I guess, my first question, Josh, I'll kick this over to you. Why are people so eager to have the government inject things into their children?
Orthodoxy, adherence to orthodoxy, going along, being part of the tribe. There is safety in doing the thing that everybody else is doing. It hadn't killed everybody else yet, so maybe I should be able to engage in it and be halfway okay. And that was the whole... and there's also a peer pressure element involved in this, which was the whole point of how COVID was covered from the beginning, of how masks were covered, of how an onus was put on the American people that they had to behave in a certain way. Otherwise, they were morally guilty of helping spread a virus that could kill grandma. And that was where we really saw the emergence of what people call the Karen class now, with people who would come and talk to you if you weren't, it was a really funny thing because they would see you from 12 feet away, grimace at you, and then come closer than 6 feet to lecture to you about how you don't have on your mask, which is supposed to protect people. And they're supposed to stay 6 feet away. And we saw video of that lots of times. But it all set up this peer pressure situation where, and then, you've got these just brainless Hollywood stars out there talking about what you need to do. I mean, these are people who can't manage their life. They're all addicted to drugs or sex or something. And they can't manage their lives, yet they're telling you how to live your life. They're functionally wholly useless to society. If the bomb goes off tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of actors who are completely useless to society. The only good they will do is in the parts of the country that go cannibal, and then they'll run out after a couple weeks. But all of it's designed to create this peer pressure situation where you feel like you have to, and oh my gosh, I've got to get. And what if somebody finds out? What if somebody finds out little Freddie isn't vaccinated? They're not going to want to have play dates with him and all of this stuff. So I think it's a huge, huge peer pressure play. And I think it's because of essentially safety in numbers, conformity, staying within the boundaries that the tribe sets, would be my guess.
That's fair. Brett, what about you? Why do you think people are so on board with this particular vaccine?
I think a part of it has to do, obviously, with social media in a way. The pandemic and social media, it's a weird combination of social factors, which I think every incentive points to that sort of like conform
herd mentality
to the max, and especially when you couple that with you need likes and retweets to honestly give you worth.
That's good. Yeah.
But what's more striking to me is the fact that there is, like Brett Weinstein, I brought him up a couple times. This man is no conservative. He's a progressive. Him and his wife, to my knowledge, aren't getting their kids vaccinated. I think they're teens. And these are evolutionary biologists. And essentially they're coming out in just common sense, like, well, who knows if this, like, what is this going to do to kids? We don't have any idea what this does to adults. And they're not coming from it from a they're not trying to discredit science. They're scientists themselves. They're actually in it for the scientific method, not just for science as an authority. And that's the thing that why are they so willing to simply ignore all of the consequence, which could if there's any
Orthodoxy.
Yes. And it's so troubling because these are children. These are children. Yep. We were blessed that the coronavirus didn't kill children. If that would have killed children, that would have made this whole thing so much worse.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And in fact, the evidence points to like kids actually are fairly well, like they have a good immune system. Like Donald Trump would have said, the immune system of the young is strong.
Yes.
And it's also, I would like to point out that it was awesome to see him come out and say like, yeah, get it if you want it. Like
Yeah.
you just said,
Yeah.
if you don't want to get it, don't. And also, these are your kids. This isn't America's kids. These are your kids. You know your
Yep.
kids better than Washington does. So it's this whole, an era of conformity.
Can I follow up? Can I follow up really quickly? This is interesting. There's also a fear element in here. I had a friend who we were friends in grad school. She has a son who's probably 10 right now or so. And I remember she used to bring him to class. She would have him swaddled up and she'd bring him to class in grad school. Well, a couple months ago, she posted on Facebook about what a relief it was that she had just gotten Jack his first shot, the first shot of his vaccine. And I messaged her asking, I'm just curious, why is it a relief? Because it has not occurred to me to have my kids vaccinated. And past that, I can't imagine the idea of relief from that happening. But so she responded. She was genuinely concerned. She was afraid. She was worried about what would happen to Jack, which is a remarkable thing since she is definitely on the left. She would claim she would be one of the people saying, let science decide, and all of these things, worshiping at the altar of science and experts. Yet there was an element of fear that was driving her. And I don't understand that. It's strange. You know, the left picks very interesting things to fear. They fear nuclear annihilation when nukes were the only thing that kept us safe.
Yes.
They fear vaccines in general when vaccines on the whole have been an enormous boon to society. They've been absolutely fantastic. They fear strange things. But yeah, fear is another thing that's driving this, and I don't quite understand it.
I think that's interesting you bring that up because, especially in the context of your former schoolmate's child. So I think we can all agree the left, whether it's through fear or indoctrination or whatever, the left is remarkably good at getting to our youth. Like they get to them very young, and credit where it's due. They do the left does an unbelievable job pervading their thoughts and just influencing from the get go. And this vaccine thing just really made me think, like, not to sound like a nihilist here, but what can be done? Like at this point, the left's tendrils in America's youth are so deep and ingrained. Like you said, Hollywood, every inch of Hollywood is leftist. If you're a conservative in Hollywood, you're ostracized. You're gone. You will never be on a child's TV screen ever again. This is, and again, just linking it back, and especially with the Make-A-Wish, that really made me think, like, the left is so zealous about getting to the kids that they will forego a dying child's last wish to make their point.
Sorry, Timmy, you got to take one for the team.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on the whole, like, Make-A-Wish kids are terminally ill. I'm going to assume most of them are immunocompromised. Getting the vaccine might be a genuinely awful idea. But yeah, so Brett, what do you think? Like, what? You're a very young man. You might become a father one day. How are you going to keep the influences of the left from pervading your child's mind?
What I've noticed is the main tactic is reductionism, reducing things down to either simple dichotomies or just reducing it to like even like past the bare bones of an issue. Where I think we would assume that like vaccines for measles and mumps in school children, that's good. We have smallpox. Great, get it. What they do that's fairly ingenious from a psychological level is that we're going to lump the coronavirus vaccine in with all those other things. And no one can debate against this. And especially with young people, I mean, I'm still young, and I remember back in my heyday when everything was just easy, black and white, or this and that. America's this and this. And like you'll die on all these hills because you're young, you haven't been exposed, you're not very wise. And also you haven't developed that part of your brain which really gives you the ability to critically think. And for me, it's like that reductionism is so core to just, you're making a choice which saves grandma, and that's what you're doing. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Frame it.
If you say, well, I have agency and I am a healthy guy, I work out every day, I get vitamin D, I'm a healthy guy. I don't need a vaccine. I don't need this vaccine. I'll get the smallpox. I'll get all these others. No, but you're going to kill grandma. And it's like that. You can't reason with that.
Yeah.
And that's the part of, and it's hard, I guess, education. And that's really the only best way tools.
Yeah, we got to move on from this too to get Brett in. But one thing that occurs to me, I'm fond of mentioning Douglas Murray on the show, and Murray, when he's talking about all of the bulk insanity, the wholesale insanity that's happening out there, he's made the observation that normally when societies get like this, the thing that resets them is war. Normally that provides a sort of a matrix through which things can be reset, values can be reassessed, and people can unite again. It seems unlikely that something like that's actually going to happen. And that's one of the scariest things right now is we don't know, okay, so what does reset everything? And I don't know what the answer to that is. I do think leftism, liberalism, or leftism, it flourishes in societies where there's plenty. And we have no real threats right now. I mean, we've essentially destroyed every threat. We are the ultimate apex creature at this point. There's no actual threat to humanity, and without that, there's nothing really to unite us. Especially, there's no overarching thing to unite us. So what we're left with is culture, and what's happening is that the left is undermining culture using critical theory. And so I don't know where you get that culture back. Our frequent refrain here is revival. That's our best hope. That's probably the easiest hope. Maybe a horrible pandemic that reorients people. I don't know. We've gone through a mild pandemic here, and it's been pretty hellish, but all it did was make everything worse. So it's not clear. It's not clear. The answer, folks, prayer. That is the only answer to this. All right. So anything else on that, Brian?
Nope.
All right.
Good ball.
In the interest of time,
so
cut it off. Go to Brett. Brett,
we're
talking about taxes.
To unite just about everybody, I think coming from your neighborhood anti-statist, I think everybody would agree, or at least hopefully everybody would agree, that taxation is theft. So that's the place from which I will now introduce this story. A nice town in Minnesota named Burnsville, let me get my notes up, is thinking, they haven't instituted this decision yet, but at least the city council is pondering the decision to give the taxpayers some authority over how they allocate tax funds. This could go to civil services, including fire, police, and along with like other, I guess, I don't know if they're necessarily welfare programs, but things of that matter. So they're not going to just give abject 100% authority, but slowly but surely introduce the taxpayers to maybe orient their funds in a specific direction.
There would be a pot, and they could kind of vote on how much of the pot goes to each thing.
I think it's from what I've interpreted. I've tried to. There's only a few reports out about this, but it seems like you as an individual can say, "I want my money to go here," and of course, this is on the city level. There's it's very interesting because the way I look at it, it is a benefit for citizen engagement. Like people are now kind of, it's your money, so you're tied to it. And I mean, if you have power over it, I think that's really good. Political responsibility. So if you guys as the taxpayers make a horrible decision, and we had this conversation earlier, if you happen to defund the police and next thing you know, crime skyrockets, then you can see that decision manifest in real time. And you're like, oh, wow.
There are actual consequences.
Yeah, it was a horrible idea, guys. Yeah. Localism, I think all of us prefer to not be ruled by Washington and to be ruled by our neighbors down the street who know us by name instead of who look at us as mere objects. In addition to that, there's advocates of democracy for those people that are on the left and love democracy. This is small d democratic to the max, and social contract theory. I don't want to get into that because that's a little bit crazy, but all of these things, there's so much about this where I'm like, this is inventive, it's new. Even if it fails, I'm excited that city councils are coming up with these great ideas. So I'll orient this one to you, Josh. If this happened here, either in Phoenix or Anthem, what would you say?
Oh, how would I want my taxes to be used?
Yeah.
Oh no.
My
last show, I got to get some spice in here.
I want a border moat. I want a moat stocked with crocodiles. Stocked with crocodiles. No, yeah, exactly that. Use it for law enforcement. Firefighters. Firefighters particularly. I mean, we're based here in Phoenix. If you guys have been watching the news, you know the wildfires out here, the brush fires have got national attention. There's, the state. but don't believe all the climate change stuff. The state is always on fire in the summer. It doesn't matter what else is going on. But yeah, funding that makes an actual difference. Where else I would love to see funding go? Local charter schools, because my kids are in a charter school.
Yes.
They're going to be in a charter school next year. I would love to see funding go for that. What I don't want funding going for is salaries of people who are bureaucrats who are making six digits in Phoenix. I don't want that. I don't want that. I would like my money to stay here. I would like it to benefit education for my kids. I don't want to pay for education for somebody who's making $500,000 a year. I don't want to pay for education for his kid. I want to pay for the education my kids enjoy. And by the way, I want that education to be available to everybody in my municipality. If you can't afford, and Arizona's been pretty good about this, if you can't afford private school, there are charter schools. Get involved in those. I would love to see funds go there. So roads, law enforcement, safety.
Yeah. All of
that
those
kind of
things
thing. Education.
And those are all
local.
things that you, again, directly see. My tax dollars are going to benefit the community, and I can see the road improve down the street, or I can see that charter. I can see the books that go into the charter school.
Yeah.
All of these things are just so beneficial to me. And I'll put this one to you, Brian. So as the city council, this idea is inventive. We don't see these things very often.
We do not.
Would you like to see more outside of the box thinking from city councils, or just this, because we always have this like traditional Washington establishment? This is the opposite of establishment.
I'm always torn on the age-old debate of new and improved versus what's worked. Because the whole.
That's why you're a conservative, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I like the proliferation of new ideas. I just need to we need to make sure it's filtered correctly, because the kind of flip side of what you've described is like, what if a city council decided we're going to decide where our citizens' taxpayer money go? We're going to, what if that's the plan they came up with? So, yes, I love originality. I love new ideas. I think starting at such a local level is probably key. I can see this having just disastrous consequences in a larger municipality. But yeah. I
would love to see it play out actually in a larger municipality.
Oh boy, I would love that as well.
One of the observations when people looked at the Republic early on was this idea of laboratories of democracy. The idea was that there were going to be different states where people lived different ways, and presumably their taxes would be spent in different ways. And so you could really choose kind of the lifestyle you wanted. If you were super crunchy and really liked the outdoors, you could go to a place that really emphasized that. Yeah. If you liked urban areas and you liked the arts and those things, you could go to a place that was more focused on urban living. If you liked growing things, you could go somewhere in the South, where I'm from. It would be super interesting. It's really funny to watch people get mad at California, people from different parts of the country. Oh, there's idiots in California. I can't believe they're doing this. Like, why do we care? I want California to adopt as many leftist policies as possible, because that should show the rest of the country what happens when you do that. And I love the idea of a place like Milwaukee deciding they're going to let the citizens choose where the tax money goes, and they take all the money away from the police departments. It will be fantastic to watch what happens there. Those should be object lessons for people. Yep. Right now, we've got this kind of worst of both worlds, where you've got third, fourth, or even fifth parties handling your tax dollars, so they misspend them, but they don't misspend them bad enough that it's catastrophic for society. So everything limps on with these incompetent people directing your funds. It would be really interesting to see what would happen if you actually democratized that all the way through.
That would be fascinating.
And by the way, folks, as lots of you who are watching know, that's why we're not a democracy. We're a republic. We're a democracy wrapped in a republic. That's why we have a representative form of government, not a democratic form of government. It's way, way, way too dangerous to have a pure democracy.
Yes,
unbelievably
people
dangerous.
are idiots.
Those guys.
So people are idiots. That's true.
I heard this the other day. One person is smart. People are idiots.
Yes, that is true.
That's very good.
That is from the original Men in Black movie.
Really?
Yes, that is where that quote is from. As you can tell, that was one of my favorite movies of all time.
Waiting for it to come out that was actually a Socratic quote. All right, folks. Thanks for being here today. That's going to do it for us on this Friday afternoon. We love wrapping up the week with you. We hope you've enjoyed the time. We hope you're a little bit better off for it. Thank you for joining us. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button. After that, you'll be able to click a little bell off to the side. Click that. It's going to make sure that you don't get, and now all of a sudden I can't remember the term. Shadow banned. We don't get shadow banned from you. Thank you, Brian. Also, again, thank you just for spending time with us. Thank you for checking out the Western Journal. Just by doing that, you're supporting us and our work. If you do feel led to support us in a more direct way, you can always go to westernjournal.com/join. That's westernjournal.com/join. There are a couple of options there where you can partner with us to make sure that the journalism that we do, which is truth-focused, focused on telling stories the establishment media either doesn't want to cover or is desperate not to cover, you can partner with us to make sure that journalism continues. For Brian, for Brett, for everybody in the control room and everybody at the Western Journal, I'm Josh Manning. Thanks for joining us on WJ Live. We'll see you next Monday.
Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no. You and Joe.
The Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Come here to go to the studio. Oh. No!